Hi everyone, Kristen here with Virtual Clarinet Academy. Today I'm going to share with you my favorite ways to make really quick, easy adjustments to your reed so that you can have a better sound when you're in rehearsal, practicing, or about to have a performance. Having a great sounding reed is key to success on clarinet, and sometimes we don't have time to sit down and work on reeds in order to make them perform optimally. These tips will help you have a better, clearer sound with just a quick few adjustments, so that way you can perform and practice with confidence. When the reed is hard, it can be difficult to even physically produce a sound. You might also hear that the tone is kind of muffled or stuffy, or just has kind of a cloud around it versus that really clear, direct, focused tone that we're always working for on clarinet. Now, if you pull a reed out of your case to perform on or to practice on, and you're experiencing what we might call a hard reed, a really quick thing you can do is make an adjustment of the placement of the reed. So normally the reed is placed approximately equal to where the top of the mouthpiece is. If you move the reed down just a little bit lower than normal, this is going to help balance out where the reed is thickest in the heart. So just matching the resistance of the natural reed itself to where it sits on the mouthpiece. This is going to make it slightly easier to play on and will help you make it through a practice session or a rehearsal. If you're working towards a performance, of course, we always recommend that you be working on and rotating through reeds well in advance, so that way come close to performance time, you have a selection of awesome reeds to really make your best sound. Now for soft reeds, the opposite is true. If you're playing on a soft reed, it might be too easy to play on or too responsive as you go to perform. The sound also is rather bright, quite strident, or just a little bit wild rather than warm, controlled, and really comfortable as you're playing. So, like the other trick, what you can do is make an adjustment on your mouthpiece. So again, normally we would set it up approximately equal here, but with a soft reed, you can slide the reed up just a little bit. So that way, again, the softer heart of the reed, the tonal center of the reed, is sitting a little bit higher on the mouthpiece, again, just to balance out that resistance. Pairing your reed with your mouthpiece is really one big science experiment, so feel free to do some experimenting on your own, moving the reed up and down in order to really find the positioning and the balance that works for you. Now, if you're finding that every reed that you try to play on is either too hard or too soft, I do have a few suggestions for you. First of all, if you're noticing that nearly all of your reeds are too hard, I would consider experimenting with a softer reed just to see if you can find a balance that works better for you that's a little bit softer. Remember that softer is just a relative term. It's talking about, again, the natural product of the cane versus how good you are at clarinet. That has no bearing on what strength reed you play on. Now, if you're finding that most of your reeds are soft, you might try the opposite and move up a half strength. This, again, is just going to pair better with your mouthpiece and how much air you're able to comfortably put into the clarinet to get you the very best tone that we're always working towards as clarinet players. Lastly, make sure that you're taking care of your reeds when you're not using them. So that means storing them in a reed guard or a reed case and in an environment that's humidity controlled. All of this is going to help extend the longevity of your reeds, as well as ensure that they don't warp, they don't mold, they don't chip. Again, just taking good care of them as you're working through and spending time breaking in your reeds in the course of your practicing. Now, if you're a person who's interested in doing more experimenting with reed adjustment, there are some pretty easy ways that you can practice doing this. I always recommend as you're starting that you use old reeds that are not in your performance rotation, so that way if you make a mistake, you're really just doing it on an old practice reed rather than a reed that really matters. Make sure you're really confident in your reed adjustment before you start doing so on reeds that you intend to use for performance in the future. So the first suggestion I have, and this is a really easy thing, is to use really fine grit sandpaper. This is just going to lightly shave reed cane off in areas that the reed might be hard. So what you can do is run the reed very lightly up and down on the sandpaper on a flat surface to remove cane from the back. This will help to balance the back of the reed and help it respond even more easily. You can also fold the sandpaper up a little bit and target certain points on the reed and in order to target your low notes, your high notes, or the tip of the reed if you find that to be really resistant. Again, I would do some research on your own to really be more familiar with what parts of the reed are going to be affected by where you scrape, because it does matter and there is a method to doing so. The other option that is really easy that I use personally is to get a tool like a Reed Geek. This is just a little metal tool and it does the same thing as the sandpaper, but I'm able to target a little bit more specifically in my reed adjustment than when I'm using the sandpaper. And again, I'm able to just flatten the back of the reed and then target certain points on the top of the reed in order to have clearer articulation or more clear low notes, for example. So again, if you are interested in doing this, there's a lot of information out there, and if you would love to see us do a video about this, please let us know. I'm always happy to talk a little bit more about reeds and how to get better at working on them. They're truly one of the successful parts of playing clarinet. I hope this is helpful to you as you begin to explore working on reeds and getting better at learning how to balance and how to position them to make your very best sound. Also remember that what works for one person may not work for another, so these are just suggestions that have been successful for Rucha and myself in the past. If you try other things that work best for you, we would love to know what they are. Feel free to leave a comment or send us a message. Again, I hope this is helpful to you, and I wish you all the very best and happy practicing.